Will democracy survive in the next couple of years?
And essentially, we are the same.
And there are so many needs that Minnesota has.
What people are saying they need right now.
Access to democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations: Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center in Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Firefly Credit Union, with locations throughout the Twin Cities, has proudly served Minnesotans since 1925. Firefly guides its members forward by delivering customized financial solutions to improve their lives in all aspects of banking. Firefly Credit Union, they light the way with life illuminated. Edina Eye, Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years. Now in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, Edina Eye offers comprehensive services for dedicated specialists committed to excellence with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns. Alan Miller with you as usual. And we have a first-time guest today, Dr. Judith Rabinow, who is a psychotherapist, and she's also described as a clinician, author, writing coach, speaker, workshop leader, and I think she probably sweeps the floors also, but we don't know about that. And I just want to say that I know Judy for 35 years now, and she has been one of the most important people in my life. And for that, I am indebted to her. And with that, we'll talk about Judith, who has also lectured all over the world, certainly at Harvard and at the Esalen Institute and, well, where else? You certainly have been busy these years.
I've been busy these years. Lots of universities, Columbia, Princeton, lots of places, Hofstra, Adelphi, NYU.
Yeah, speak a little closer to the microphone.
Okay, how's this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that better? Let me.
We don't want to lose what you're saying.
Okie doke.
So, and Judy has 2 great kids, one who lives on the West Coast and one who lives in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, who probably is one of the leading tour leaders of tours in Mexico and South America. He's probably been out of work since about February.
I'm surprised to know this, but the name of my son's company is Journey Mexico.
Right.
People are starting to travel again, and he has gravitated into the right field, which is the villas, because that's what people are willing to do. They're willing to take a plane and bring their large family and hang out together in a beautiful, warm place. So all of us in the North, wouldn't we like to be doing this in December, January, February, March? So that's what he's doing. He's doing, of course, regular upscale tourism.
And I hope we can. We have spent some time with Zachary and his family when we were in Puerto Vallarta, which is a regular stop for us for 23 years now. So in any event, Judith also has written some books. And the first one she wrote is A Starving Madness. And it's really about anorexia and bulimia. And I am fortunate that I was one of the acknowledgements and the editing of that book. You've been busy.
Yes,
that came out in 2002.
To me, Alan, really.
Pardon?
You were really helpful. I remember that phase of my life, our relationship, and you were very helpful.
And then it was in 2012, Befriending your ex after divorce.
Right.
And
Here's a picture of that book.
all righty.
Yeah, that's enough of that book.
And now you have another one coming out in May. We'll talk about briefly. And actually, Avi knows he's got an advance of the cover, so he will insert it here.
Beautiful.
But The Girl with the Red Boots, which is coming out on May 4th. And what's that about?
Well, it's about, the name of the book is The Girl in the Red Boots Making Peace with My Mother. And it took me my whole life to really understand all of the positive qualities my mother bequeathed to me. And like many people, even though I'm a psychologist, and of course I've been to all different kinds of therapy, I still had my grudges about this went wrong and that went wrong. This went wrong and that went wrong. And maybe what is unique is that the things that bothered me, they really bothered me because I knew that deep down inside, I loved my mother and she loved me. And in that way, I think I'm not unique. I mean, there is so much love between mothers and daughters, and yet there is also a backlog of grudges and disappointment and resentments. And that's what this book is about, making peace with one's mother. And
A very unique lady, Peggy Neidenberg,
Peggy-
and spent many, many pleasant hours with Peggy.
Yep.
That-
Peggy,
So, and that's coming out in May.
that's coming out in May.
Well, we'll look forward to that, and we'll have you back right before it comes out so
Wonderful.
that we can talk the book. But today, let's talk about the effect that the COVID epidemic has had. Let's start with your patients. How have they related to you, and what tensions have they talked about?
Well, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, this is a perfect storm, the pandemic and the election, each of which is the source of a huge amount of anxiety. And just like you would think, how it's affected my patients, the answer to that is the answer to most things about people. It depends. For a couple of people, and I can think of one young woman in particular, being isolated with the pandemic has been the most terrible thing for her. She feels like she's been robbed of her 23rd year, where she's supposed to be out making sure her career gets off the ground, making sure she can meet people. And none of that is really possible. She's working in an office and everybody has been fired and she's doing a lot of scut work. And
of course, this is 8 months now.
And this is right. We thought it was going to be 3 weeks, 3 months. Now it's 8 months. It looks like it's going to go into 2022, right?
Well, it's certainly going to go well into 2021, because even if they do have the vaccine that was promised 6 months ago, what we will be facing is testing, and then people lining up and priorities for getting the vaccine. And in the meantime, it'll be isolation and masks and being very careful.
Very careful. I mean, I just took my car in for a small repair and the guy said to me, he said, remember last year how we were hoarding toilet paper? People are going to start hoarding syringes now, thinking that, you know, we don't know how this vaccine is going to be dispensed and dispersed, right? We really don't know how, whether we'll be giving it to ourselves, whether we'll be all lined up at different kinds.
I think it depends whether it's available while Trump is president or whether it's available when Biden is president, because I have a lot more confidence if the latter takes place, that there'll be some semblance of at least intelligence in the way it's distributed.
Well, your mouth to God's ears, that's what I have to say, both about Biden and unfortunately, we are going to say goodbye, Mr. Trump, in January. And I doubt that there's going to be a vaccine, at least not one that's readily available in January.
I don't think so.
But we don't know what's going to happen.
But in addition to being cooped up, as this young lady is, and as some of our kids are, et cetera, crime is up, divorce is up, physical abuse complaints are up, depression is up, anger is up, nervousness is up, nervous breakdowns is up, rage is up. Take them on one by one.
Let me take a couple of things on. One thing is I'm not really seeing a lot of physical abuse and physical violence, but what I'm hearing from many people who are married is finding a middle ground for how to deal with the pandemic is not that easy for many people. For example, one woman said to me recently, she said, I can't trust my husband. He runs a huge office. I stopped in there and nobody was wearing a mask. Somebody's sitting in the reception area with no mask. He said, this is how I want to do it. Well, he comes home to her with nobody wearing a mask. So she has a lot of difficult choices to make, right?
Absolutely.
She has
And, you know, we have seen that here. For
Mhm.
instance,
Tell me.
Minnesota is a football state. So they're crazy for high school football.
Mhm,
So there will be games tonight
mhm.
and there'll be small crowds, but inevitably what's going to happen, because we have that mentality here, is that things are going to spike. And they've been spiking for the last week, and deaths have been going up for the last week to a pretty frightening scale, because people, why do we have to have football games? Because it's football and we're a football state. I mean, you know, give me a break. The hockey teams are getting, and they're even worse, are getting ready to start their practices and all. And people just don't listen. I don't know when they listen, perhaps maybe when somebody in their family is afflicted.
Exactly. I mean, and then another important thing is, you know, the demographics are relative. Many younger people are not really worried. They are not worried. They feel like this is like getting a bad flu and I'm not going to stop my life.
Mm.
You know, whereas older people who are clearly the more vulnerable, more at risk.
Stay closer to the mic.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Older people who are clearly more vulnerable, you know, more at risk, are more concerned. And so what does that say? It says that this is just spreading like wildfire. Kids go to football games, they come home to their parents, parents see the grandparents. It's really quite a frightening, chaotic situation.
And people don't recognize the fact that they can be a carrier without symptoms, so that particularly to the vulnerable, they pass those symptoms on, and then they look askance when that person comes down with COVID, or even worse than that dies from the COVID.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, you mentioned chaos, I think, in a conversation we had before I came on. And that reminded me of the Chinese symbol for crisis, because the Chinese symbol for crisis is both danger and opportunity. And we are living through a chaotic crisis. And for many people, this has a lot of dangerous possibilities. But there are other people for whom it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to do something new. They suddenly are not chained to their office. They suddenly are not chained to their desk. I'll give you a great example. The day after the election, I spoke to a 23-year-old and she said, I'm a mess. She said, I think I'm going to leave the United States and go to graduate school in Canada. And I felt, good for you. You have been languishing these past 8 months, not knowing what you want to do. And we spent the rest of the session her really talking about how she had gotten derailed from some of her dreams. That it really surprised me. That's one of the majorly interesting things about being a therapist, is you kind of never really know what direction people are going to go in. You may think you do, but there are always surprises.
And, you know, I think that that's true, that a lot of people see opportunities that they never saw before, or they have a lot of time to spend with their families, quality time that they never enjoyed before. But the fact of the matter is, the other side of the coin is a lot of people have really felt a lot of deprivation, loss of jobs. And even in today's paper, apparently the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has just foreclosed or canceled the leases or started eviction proceedings, whatever, against hundreds of people in his buildings who haven't been able to pay the rent. Why haven't they been able to pay the rent? Because they're not working, because they have to feed their families. And that to me is criminal. I mean, it's indicative of my opinion of Jared Kushner, but I don't want to get political on you, but
Why not? Let's talk about the Trump dynasty. And
well, we're going to talk about that. That's the next thing I have coming up. And there was an interesting article in the New York Times on November 1st called Election Stress Disorder.
Yeah.
And you must have heard from people also coming into you who were stressed because of the election or fearful that there would be another 4 years of this administration, and relate some of that.
well, I mean, people are just feeling so frightened because we have had no leadership through this pandemic. I mean, granted, he is not the cause of the pandemic, President Trump, but his lack of intervention has led to thousands of deaths, and his disregard for science, his disregard for Fauci, his disregard for his own constituency, having all these rallies and people going home and getting sick and spreading it. It's criminal. It's criminal. I mean, so people are very worked up about what is going to happen and what is going to happen to him. And will there be a punishment? How does a man get away with paying $750 a year in taxes when there are upstanding civil servants out there paying thousands and thousands of dollars as we're all supposed to be doing? There's just one thing after another. You can't even get focused on any one injustice, on any one travesty of justice, because there's so many areas, correct?
Unfortunately, we're not going to see too much coming out of the federal side of it, I don't think, unless they impeach him again before, and I don't see that happening.
No.
He's going to pardon everybody in sight, and he's going to try to pardon himself. But it's the New York courts that I think we're going to have to rely on to follow through in the areas that they seem to be following closely: his finances, the fraud that he's committed in New York and other places. And we will see, but I think that's where justice is going to come. And those crimes that he's charged with in New York are serious, and they carry jail terms. So it's a question. I hope that Biden doesn't put any pressure on anybody to hold back, saying it's bad for the country, as we did with Nixon, and then pardoned him. I hope that they go through with these prosecutions, because there has been nobody, in my estimation, who is more of a criminal and a fascist, really, than Donald Trump. And I have written about it on my blog numerous times. And in fact, I just sent a proposal to the New York Times called Maligning Fauci, and the damage that they've done to the reputation of this man, who's probably the finest immunologist in the world.
Right.
And the fact that they can attack him after a 40-year career where everybody looks up to him is just, to me, that's criminal also.
And even more than criminal, I mean, this is like a flagrant abuse of respect for humanity. I mean, he just disregards the humaneness of the person. And it's really upsetting. We are bombarded with bad news so much that we can't even really respond to it. As we're still responding to one thing, there's something else. There could be something happening right now. Right now, he's talking about how Biden is stealing the election, when the person who's tried to steal the election and halt the election is none other than him himself.
Well, Donald Trump has thrived on chaos since the very beginning. I can remember back when I was appalled when he called for the execution of the Central Park Five, who were accused of raping a woman in Central Park. And ultimately, They were actually convicted and he called for their execution. Subsequently, it was determined that somebody else did it, and they all were pardoned after several years in prison. That to me started my watching Donald Trump very carefully as an unscrupulous person, and he hasn't disappointed me in that regard, which is why I found myself writing about him so many times. But there was a recent survey, again, said 30% of people feel anxious or depressed because of the pandemic. Have you found that in your practice?
Yes, I have. I have found that there is a kind of free-floating anxiety that people don't even really know how to identify what is causing it, because every single thing we are doing these days makes us think twice. Things that used to be nothing. You need a new winter coat, you're going to go buy a coat. No, now you have to think, am I going to go to the mall? Am I going to go in a store? Am I going to go in a dressing room? Should I order from Amazon? I don't like Amazon, so I don't want to order from Amazon, but what am I going to do? I need the simplest thing. Now, gives us so much anxiety. What I have found in my office this week is people talking about Thanksgiving. Should I take a plane? Should I allow somebody in my house? Can I let my daughter-in-law in my house, but her kids go to school? Well, we can't have Thanksgiving out. We can't count on having Thanksgiving outside in New York City or Minnesota. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's not something you can count on. It could be a snowy day. So things that
guaranteed in Minnesota, it could be a snowy day.
Things that used to give us a sense of security and identity and comfort and joy and were predictable rituals of family connection are now fraught with anxiety. So I know the largest numbers of people who are not having Thanksgiving with family because the family is not close enough, or else all the things I just told you. Kids are in school, grandparents are too old. So yeah, everybody is quite anxious. Should I take the subway? Should I go in a car with my neighbor? Should I take my husband to the doctor? He doesn't see that well, but I'm not supposed to go into the doctor, and maybe I don't want to go into the doctor's office where there are a whole lot of other sick people. So we're really all dealing with a tremendous amount of anxiety.
Now, one of the articles I read recently that I'm going to send to you says that you can pitch serenity in the age of stress by doing meditation. I have never been one who found meditation as a solution to anything, but what do you think about that?
Well, what I think is meditation is not for everyone. For some people, what's meditative is to just sit and listen to classical music. That can be meditative. Reading can be meditative for some people, whereas other people tell me I can't read a book. I'm too anxious. I sit down and start to read and my mind goes, but I have a little process I tell people about, and it's called stop. As soon as you notice that like your brain is racing, your thoughts are driving you crazy, you feel like your heart is beating, stop. And what does stop stand for? It stands for 1S, slow down. And the best way to slow down is to take a few deep breaths. And that is a meditative technique. Just taking a few deep breaths and closing your eyes and allowing yourself to slow down. And that's ST, take a deep breath. O, just observe what it is like to breathe deeply, slowly, calmly. And I even noticed my voice slowing down and dropping down as I speak, and that helps me calm down. And the last one is STOP. All you have to do is practice this. Just practice. Breathing slowly, taking a deep breath in, inhale in and let it go. Exhale, inhale completely, exhale completely, and practice it. And I know when I myself push myself to slow down, I feel slightly better. Now, does that feel like something you are interested in, or is that annoying? Because it's very annoying to some people.
Well, I think I still have too much A personality New York in me to adopt that. But Sharon, one of the things Sharon and I have done is a tremendous amount of reading. She always did a tremendous amount of reading anyway, but
Mhm.
we've each always got a book going, and that's one thing. And of course, we have a great dog, and she has been so much a part of our lives. Just walking her, playing with her, relaxing with her, and she's
They've done
soft and
studies.
affectionate.
They've done studies that have shown that petting a dog lowers blood pressure. Just the tactile experience of putting your hand, one hand on another, or petting a dog, or holding the hand of another person helps us all calm down. And sometimes I tell people in my office, when you come home from work or when you come out of your room, because nobody goes to work anymore, give each other a hug and say nothing. Just see what it's like to feel the warmth of another human being, the warmth of someone you love, the touch. It's very, very gratifying. It's very soothing. It's very calming. And it reminds us of some very basic things that no matter who is president, we still have the ability to listen to Mozart, to read a book, to play music, to do
We-
things,
We
and
are
to
both
breathe deeply, and to breathe deeply.
we are both country music fans, so we've found a lot of relaxation with country music. And actually, because we can't see our friends on a regular basis, which we normally did, we have played a lot of gin rummy, except that I don't have a very good record at gin rummy. I am constantly the loser, which says something about either my lack of ability or Sharon's acuteness in terms of gin rummy.
Well, you can
those
take
are
the P
things
from practice, STOP, practice, practice, practice.
I'm going to try that now.
My husband and I are playing chess, and he's the chess player. He's teaching me. But I mean, I read about how to play chess on the internet. That takes my mind off of the pandemic, off of the election. I mean, you know, we have to figure out ways to distract ourselves from the things that make us anxious.
There was another article in the Times only a few days ago, November 3rd, which was the pandemic and seasonal blues. And that article by Jane Brody was that normally this time of year is a time for seasonal blues to begin with.
Right.
And with the pandemic on top of it, we have more to deal with. And certainly in Minnesota, November is a very gray month usually. So it is a depressing month in that regard. And we have to find ways to deal with these things.
And people, I have a patient who's talking to me. Can she let her college student daughter back into the house? Her daughter is living in a house with 8 other girls. Then college is over. Where is she going to quarantine? All of this creates so much anxiety and depression. The very simple things that once gave us pleasure and once added stability to our lives now are fraught with questions. Can I do this? Can I do that? Am I going to get sick? Am I going to give it to somebody? So you're right. We have to find new ways. And well, when we're listing some things for people in the listening audience, deep breathing, gin rummy, playing chess, listening to music, whether it's Mozart or country music, right?
Absolutely.
You know, and what else would we like to put on that list? Cooking. Many people have gotten into cooking. All of a sudden, going out to a restaurant used to be a big thrill. Well, in New York, most people are not going to indoor restaurants, and it's cold now.
Actually, we have run out of time. We've been talking with a favorite person, Dr. Judith Rabinow, psychotherapist from New York. And Zoom enables us to do things that we couldn't just do in the studio. So I want to thank you so much, Judy, for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me, Alan.
We will have you back in May
Wonderful.
to kick off the book.
Wonderful.
And may it be a success like the others. Stay well.
You too.
Wear your mask and stay home.
Wear your mask, wash your hands, and stay home. That's our message to anybody out there.
And thanks so much.
Great talking, Alan. Great.